contract negotiations. Sometimes they're pretty easy. Sometimes they're pretty nasty as you go through. Few things can excite you more than sitting down there and having somebody say some really nasty things at the whole thing. And then you have to decide what you're going to do. In one case, I had a union, a police union I was dealing with, and they come in with their guns and their badges and everything else. And I had one say something especially vile and vulgar in the organization. And he said that their chief negotiators he went through, and I was a chief negotiator on our side. He said that, and I'm going to spare you what he said. But that being said, I had a couple seconds to decide how to respond. Do I sit down there and pretend he didn't say the vulgarity that he said? Do I sit down and say, you knock it off, don't do that again? He might shoot me then on top of it. Or do I walk out as you go through? Because you can't walk out when somebody's vulgar and crude. You got to put up with that kind of garbage. So I paused because I was thinking, and I finally sat there and says, I hope that you sit down and apologize, because here's what's happening. You wear a badge and you wear a gun, and you took an oath when you put that badge on. And what you said just insulted every woman on planet Earth as you go through. You apologize now, or we're walking. All of a sudden, his face went pale, and he apologized about 7 or 8 times as we went through. And the best part about it was we got through the contract in 2 more sessions, and we were all done. You have to think about this aspect of what principles and values you have as your representative as you go through. Do you have any, or do you just want to get a contract done as you go through? Contract negotiations are different aspects of it. This is where you have fun with nonverbal communication. You sit down and come up with your thing, and you have this. You may craft things as you go together. I developed a couple forms of negotiation. One of them was called lightning negotiations, we labeled as you went through. We did better outside of the negotiating room, talking in the hallway, than inside the negotiating room, because too many hotheads were in the room. So the leadership, we go to negotiate in the hallway, come back in with an agreement. Everybody would rubber stamp it as you went through in the process. No, not quite rubber stamp. But that being said, too many hotheads sometimes really spoils the whole soup as you go through. So negotiations is really different aspects as you go through. Sometimes as you go through, you have a multi-employer as you go through, sometimes a single employer multi-plan, and sometimes single employer single plan as you go through. It just depends where you're at in the process. So a multi-employer, a lot of times your trades, you sit down, talk to a whole group of them as you go through. In our case, one time we had 7 different unions working for us as you go through. So you almost, everybody watched what this one particular group got for money, and then they all wanted the same amount of money as you went through, because they were the toughest negotiators. So we always wanted to get them last. And of course, everybody else wanted to hold off on their contracts till they got theirs first as to go through. So it depends. There's different strategies they have as you go through. Here are really 4 different strategies. For the most part, some of them look similar. Distributive bargaining is just a term you'll find in the textbook as you go through. Usually it's adversarial negotiating. You have your side and they have their side, and you fight it out to the death. It's kind of like a big wrestling match where you come in, and the bigger the person and the harder you slam them on the turf, then who wins in the process. It's win, lose, ugly, and everything else. And sometimes it becomes really difficult in the process you go through. There's another one out there called interest-based bargaining, where you go through and both sides agree to go off to a course together, and you learn the different rules of state what you really want to have. What is your interest in bargaining over here? Well, we want this, and you hear the other person express themselves. There's a lot of merit to that as you go through. Persuasive-based bargaining, and a lot of it is just more interest-based bargaining. Usually it's a matter of, we have feelings as you go through. Yeah, you talk about feelings as you go through our employees over here. Then you have consensus-based, where, okay, we agree on this as you go through. I've used almost all these in the process, yet by the time you're all done, you're going to have your own style. The other side will have their own style. A lot of times agreeing to a set of rules that you have as you go through, and then if somebody violates the rules, call them out on it. You know what, I heard that you said after last session, da, 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 da. Did you really say that? Because if you did, you broke our rules. Well, yeah, I might have said something like that. It's, okay, from now on, don't do that again, because I'm going to call you out and I'll go public that you broke a rule that we had here. And so it's one of these things of you need total honesty in that bargaining room. And really, one of the key things, in my opinion, of a great negotiator is you need to do what you say you're going to do. We call that keeping your word. A negotiator has to keep their word in the process. Otherwise, they'll never get trustworthy at that table, and the other side will never trust them as you go through. And they'll respond back in kind as you go through. Here's how management normally prepares as you go through. Have different interviews as you go through, review the old contract, look on data that's sitting out there, anticipate what they want as you go through, establish different provisions, prepare for a strike just in case, determine the strategy and logistics as you go through the process. And typically, as you go through in the process, sometimes you toss in what I call red herrings. Usually you have 4 or 5 throwaway items as you go through. And you know what? You have 2 different levels. You get the true throwaway items. They're just really dumb things you just toss in that you expect to get thrown out. And then you have another set of maybe items, things that'd be kind of fun to get, but you never expect to get. A couple times I've gotten to weird stuff as you go through, and I got that, really cool, I like it. As you go through, the union does pretty much the same thing. They'll have the same type of thing. They'll a lot of extensive proposals, and then by the time they're all done and the different aspects of it, you really have hopefully a meaningful contract as you go through between both sides, and both sides to sit down and resolve it. Sometimes if you don't, the bargaining power, sometimes you end up with impasses and you have to bring an outside party in. A lot of times contracts have a pathway for impasses. Sometimes you bring an arbitrator in as you go through. Sometimes you elevate it from your negotiating table to some type of higher council or a board in the process as you go through, or an arbitration panel as you go through. So it depends how much you're willing to sit down and take a strike or whatever you need to do. Some of the factors, if you're going to look about this on an honest basis, you're at the executive level in human resources, and you're going to sit down and talk to your executive team as you go through. Product demand, what'll happen if we go on strike? Will the products perish as you go through? What kind of technology are we looking at? Can I get replacement workers as you go through? Now, by the way, that as soon as you do that, you start sitting down, and you'll probably never sit down and have some friends you used to have in the union before. That's a really tough thing as you go. So you look at the different options you have and the factors. Sometimes you got to sit down. If I go to mediation, if I go to fact finding, where somebody from the outside comes in and they start digging through your books, they may find some things you don't want them to see as you go through on the union side. Sometimes you have to go to arbitration. So collective bargaining has many potential processes. Interest-based bargaining or adversarial, typically as you go through. A lot of preparation on both sides happens, and both sides should be actively out there soliciting the opinions and perspectives of the people that they're representing as you go through. And always, by the time you're done, you have the options of mediation, fact-finding, and arbitration as potential resolutions in case the table doesn't work. Take care.